Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are. Um, Welcome to this session, and I'm sorry for that little bit of delay, some technical problems. So let me just welcome all of you, and you guys can also reply back a warm hello to me. So, hi Prashubh, hi Animesh, hi Shubhra. Then we have so Shubhra, hold on to that question. Shubhra is asking how to decode dense passages. I'm going to talk about that, Shubhra. Just hold on. Wonderful. Hi, Kartikeya. So, all of you guys, welcome to this session on how to understand the scope of passages and derive the main point. As you already know, about 20%, or about more than 80% of the times you are asked the question, what is the primary purpose of the passage? What is the main purpose of the passage? What is the main idea of the passage? What does the author intend to do? And today we're going to talk all about that. All right. Hi, Manish. Hi, Thunderbird. Is that it? Okay. All right. So let me start sharing my screen with you guys. Once again, a very warm hello from GMATWhiz. I am Sunita and I'm the verbal head and the chief mentor at GMATWhiz. So I'm going to talk a lot about all of the things that you are worried about regarding RCs. Hi, Anirudh. Um, Let me just start sharing my screen, guys. Okay, give me a moment. So in the meantime, you can let me know where you are from and what you're doing. Do let me know if you can see my screen, guys. Can you see my screen, all of you? Can you see my screen? Hi, Anirudh. Hi. So once again, hi, guys. All right. Let me tell you quickly a little bit about myself. So, my name is Sunita, and I am the verbal head at GMATWhiz. I have been in this prep industry for over a decade now, and teaching verbal is my passion. I have taught approximately about 30,000 plus students in my career of over a decade. So today we're going to talk about various things about RCs, but I'm sure that for most of us, RCs are a pain point. So what we're going to do today, let me quickly establish that, guys, without wasting your time at all. We're going to talk about how to read in the most effective manner. I mean, a lot of a lot of you who have been preparing for quite some time have probably felt yourself helpless when it comes to RCs. You don't know how to really read so that you don't take too much time and yet you're able to read in the most effective manner and get those answers right. We are also going to learn how to summarize each paragraph and put together those paragraph summaries to derive the main point, because today's session is all about solving these primary purpose questions. Over 80% of your passages, so if you're getting 4 passages in your exam, at least 3 of them you can expect primary purpose questions to be there. And of course there will be the Q&A. So guys, are you excited to get started with all of that? Hi Felix. Great. So let me see. Guys, a little more hello from all of you would be wonderful. There are so many of you out there, and I would love to hear a hello from all of you. So there's Amit there, and there is Allusion. Well, that's a very strange name. And Harry Potter, Himanshu. Okay, great. So let's get started, guys. Cool. I'm going to bring up a passage right away. Okay, here goes. And here's the passage. But before the passage, quickly let's establish what is the main point. So most of you already know that main point is the central idea, the theme, the topic conveyed by the author in the passage. It's the author's main purpose and reason behind writing the passage. We already know this, okay? And the main point characteristics, if you really look at that, it should be a single sentence, which should be a complete synopsis of the entire passage. It should express the intention of the full passage. It should cover the entire passage and not just talk about one paragraph or one idea or one example. And it should leave out details, okay? The main point is always very precise. It covers the entire intent, but not the details, okay? So if we really talk very briefly about how to derive the main point, and I'm going to demonstrate all of these steps one by one in the passages that I have lined up. Right now, I'm just doing a quick roundup of a quick recap of the methodology. So we know that the motive of the passage is to arrive at a particular point or a message, okay? And how does the author plan to do that? The author will discuss different aspects of that main point. And how will the author do that? The author will probably use different paragraphs to cover these different aspects, okay? Therefore, each of these paragraphs, if you summarize their ideas, they converge into the main idea, and that is how we map the passage, make the para summaries, and arrive at the main idea. This is what we do. We all know this in theory, right? But how to do it? We've got to follow the involved and evolved reading approach, guys. That's a trademark method that GMATWhiz students follow. And today I'm also going to follow this method to show you how you can arrive at that main point very quickly and most accurately. Okay, guys, so here's the passage. There's the question. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read that passage and solve that question. There's a request, guys. Do not put in your answer choices right away, okay? Do not put your answer choices in on the chat. Only put them in when I tell you to put them in, okay? That way we'll have that mystery still going strong. All right. So, guys, can you see the screen? Can you see my screen? I'll just stop the camera for a moment. Can you see my screen, guys? Just let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, great, Atul. All right, guys. So I would like a few more yeses just to be sure that you can see the screen. Great. So Prashant, Nehal, Piyush, Ruhin, AB, Harun. Wonderful. All of you can see the screen. Wonderful, guys. So 3 minutes, your time starts now. Okay. Please do not post your answer choices until I ask you to do so. Okay. So go ahead and then we will talk all about what to do and what not to do. Hi, Angela. Get started, guys. I'm going to mute myself in the meantime. Harun, I'll just be discussing the answers, but I don't want you guys to put in the answers yet. So that's okay if you've already put it. Don't worry. Just hold on. Okay, guys? I'll tell you guys when to put in the answer choices. So just hold on to that for a moment. All right, guys, you can start putting in your answer choices. All right, let's see. So Harun has already asked us whether the correct answer is C. I'm not going to reveal the answer right now because I want you guys to be your own examiners. AB says it's C. Let me see. Let me wait for a few more answers. Vinayak says C. Sushant says C. Let me see. Ruhin says B. All right. Let me wait for a few more answers. Aditya says C. Yes, guys. Anirudh says C. All right. Let me wait for a few more answers. So it's C and then it's B for now. There are a lot more of you out there. Would love to see your answers, guys. All right. While the others are posting their answers, Angela has posted E. Animesh says B. Vanshika, Nehal say B. Thokir says C. Guys, so here's an interesting question. How many times have you been really, kind of stumped by words like these, evaluate, examine, analyze, qualify, trace, question, present, discuss, describe? How many of y'all have been stumped by these words? These, what we at GMATWhiz call confusing words. And how many of you have been stumped by this? So Harun is giving the reasoning behind it. So Harun, okay, not an issue. All right, so we have a lot going between C, E, B. All right. Wonderful. So Himanshu says yes, he has often been stumped by those confusing words. So does Harun believe. Okay, and I'm sure a lot more of you have at times asked yourself, okay, should it be evaluate something, or is the author examining something, or is the author describing something, or is the author trying to qualify something or challenge something, and so on and so forth, right? So before I discuss the answer to this question, before I show you how to decode that passage and reach that answer, and remember guys, the point is not whether you got this answer correct or incorrect. The point is to learn the right way to reach that answer, okay, so that you can do it again and again and again. You can reach the correct answer to primary questions again and again and again. So Harun, I will show you something really very interesting, which will show you how to remember the distinction between these words. Okay, so here goes, guys. Just hold on to it. I'm going to discuss the question also, but till then, a little bit of patience from you. So let me just show you the very interesting bit. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what are confusing words, and this is what GMATWhiz really does. It decodes these confusing words for the students. A GMATWhiz student is never confused when going through these words or when trying to distinguish between these words. GMATWhiz student is absolutely confident. So let's see. These confusing words are words with similar but distinguishable meanings. You can see here: describe, analyze, argue, establish. Superficially, all of them seem to be the same with minor differences. Okay, and sometimes it becomes super difficult, especially in the examination atmosphere, to decide what is what. Okay, so let's see. Okay, what we have done is grouped some of these similar, frequently occurring words in certain categories. Okay, so for example, group 1 contains similar meaning words with similar meanings like describe, explain, discuss, present. But group 2 contains again words which have similar meanings but which are different from group 1. Then you have group 3, which has words of similar meaning, but which is again very different from group 2 and group 1, and so on. So you can see in group 1, look at the words that are group 1, and you will realize these are very frequently included words in the answer choices. Okay, look at the words in group 2, and you would wonder, well, what is the difference between discuss and examine, or what is the difference between discuss and evaluate? Okay, or what is the difference between, argue and analyze? All right, so the problem that usually lies regarding these words is, when it's never between the words of the same group. You'll never be confused between describe and explain, or challenge and question, or establish and prove. However, you will be confused between words from different groups. For example, as I was saying just now, you would be confused between discuss and evaluate, evaluate and challenge, or discuss and established. All right, so how do we decode it? Well, the factor that makes a difference is here. For example, group 1 words, okay, describe, explain, discuss, present, they are to be used when details and explanations are given without the author's agreement or disagreement or any conclusion being displayed in the passage. Okay. On the other hand, group 2 words, evaluate, assess, examine, analyze, these are used when certain pros and cons have been kind of weighed by the author, and the author has reached a conclusion at the end. Okay, so the differentiating factor between group 1 and group 2 becomes the pros and cons being weighed on one hand, all right, but the pros and cons not being weighed on the other hand, or the author's conclusion being present on one hand and the author's conclusion missing on the other hand. All right. Group 3 is all about when the author has doubts or disagrees about something mentioned in the passage, or some opinion mentioned in the passage. And of course, establish and prove are all about removal of doubts. Okay, so very clearly these categories tell you what to look out for in the passage if you have a certain word. So if you have the word evaluate, okay, I'm going to look out for the author's conclusion, I'm going to look out for the pros and cons, for the weighing of factors. Okay, right? So with this kind of understanding, the GMATWhiz student is like fully equipped to handle questions which contain these kind of words. All right, so guys, how was that? Yes, was that interesting? Harun, did it kind of tackle your confusion? Yes. Can you see the screen now? So Shubhra, if the screen is not moving, I think you could rejoin. So Felix, I'm going to go into that again, but that was just a glimpse of how we clear confusion related to some words which frequently occur on the primary purpose questions. Okay, and don't worry, I'm going to keep repeating them when we go through those answer choices. All right, yes, absolutely, Ruhin. The involved and evolved reading methodology tackles reading and comprehension in a very novel manner. In fact, I'm going to show you exactly what this involved and evolved reading is like, and how it makes arriving at the main point answers, or any other answer for that matter, very, very easy. But Nehal, it is a bit confusing because that's the first time you've seen. But once you go through it in detail, it won't be that confusing anymore, right? Okay, so great, guys. Now I want all of you to pay attention. And in fact, I want each of you to think. And this is the learning, guys. I promise you, once today's session is over, you will find that you have become better at reading and comprehension, even if it is by just, a few points. Okay. So for that, I want you to pay very close attention to how I read my sentences, how I relate the meaning of one word to the other. How do I relate the meaning of one sentence to the other? Okay, I want all of you to pay attention to that. And I want all of you to compare. Did I read like that? And what if I read like that? Will my understanding be different from what it is right now? Well, it could. Let's get started, guys. So I'll request you to just be a little patient. because this is something which is going to be really, really, really helpful, just like those confusing words that you saw a while back. Okay, so let me get started. Give me a moment. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to read the passage the way a GMATWhiz student is taught to read. Okay. The fields of antebellum. Let's say if I don't know what is antebellum, it's given in the bracket. It's the pre-Civil War. Okay. So we're talking about certain fields of a certain period, and the fields of what? Political history and women's history. So let's call them PH for political history and WH for women's history. So these two fields of a particular period use separate sources and focus on separate issues. Okay, so in my mind, I'm telling myself, all right, sources and focus of pre-Civil War political history and women's history are different. I simplify that sentence in my mind. Okay, it helps me to retain information better. Right now, I don't know why the author is mentioning this. Probably the author is going to discuss these kind of the differences between these two. All right. Political historians. Okay, so we are now starting off with the first of them. And I've been given a modifier here. My sentence correction skills are coming into use here. Political historians, and they are examining sources such as voting records, newspapers, politicians' writings. Okay, so in my mind, I'm telling, okay, these are all records which are very, very public things, newspapers and writings and voting records. So these political historians, they examine these kind of documents, okay, and they focus on the emergence, that is the coming up in the 1840s of a new American political nation. So what I'm getting to understand is these political historians, they focus on something to do with the political nation, the American political nation. And I also absorb that it's new. Okay. All right. Because it's the pre-Civil War, and probably that is why they're talking about the American political nation. And since, so continuing in the same sentence, since is a transition word. Okay, we give a lot of emphasis on transition words because they help us understand the meaning of the sentences, the meaning of the structure of the argument. So here the author is telling us what these political historians focus on, and then something else the author wants to tell us. What? Since women were neither voters nor politicians. So now the author is telling us that in that period, okay, women were not voting, they were not probably allowed to vote, they did not become politicians. So because this was the case, they means the women probably, okay, receive little discussion where? And since we are talking in the context of political historians, then that means the political historians do not discuss much about these women in their writings. Why? Because women are neither voters, they are not politicians, so they are not in any way involved in politics, and that is why these political historians give the women a miss. So I summarize the whole thing. See, it's because I'm explaining to you, it seems as if it will take a lot of time, but it won't. If you simplify this long sentence, it means political historians source public documents, they focus on politics but not on women, as women were apolitical. All right. Then we're talking about women's historians, meanwhile. So another transition word to help me along. I'm going to now talk about the contrast between the women's historians and political historians. They have shown little interest, hardly any interest, in the subject of party politics. Okay. So as expected, these women historians are not interested much in politics. Instead, another transition word. We teach you all about this transition word. Drawing on personal papers. Okay. So vis-a-vis the public docs that the political historians examine, these people examine personal papers. And the example of personal papers seems to be these, legal records, wills, records of female associations, to kind of throw light upon women's domestic lives, their moral activities, and emergence of women's rights movement. So this entire portion is telling us about the various personal things that these women's historians focus on, all about women's rights movement, women's involvement, women's domestic lives, and so on and so forth. Nothing to do with women and politics. unlike the political historians. So women's historians source personal docs and focus on women's personal movement, but not on politics. So look at I have kind of boiled down so many words to just so many words. Okay. And now I've got to draw out, if I have got to draw out a para summary, how will I do it? Let's see. In fact, what would be your para summary for this paragraph? Guys, let's kind of get you involved. So yes, Harun, political history and women's history are two separate subjects here. All right. Okay, guys. So I want you guys to pen down a very simple para summary for this paragraph. I've already kind of made your task a little easier, wee bit easier. Look at those three sentences and try to combine all of it into a single sentence. Come on, go ahead. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I'll mute myself. Write down a simple sentence para summary, single sentence para summary. Okay? Come on, give it a shot. The moment you have penned it, you can just post it. You can go ahead and post it. All right. Prashant says, contrast between sources of PH and WH, also reasons why PH miss women. Okay. I want each of you to look at the summary you've drawn up, and then when I draw up the summary, see the difference, if there is any difference. So good, very good, Prashant. Ayush says, so Ayush, you're worrying about time when you're learning a new method. Okay. So you have to keep solving the passage in the same way till you are able to reduce the time. But do you do it diligently? Okay, Ayush? It won't take you 7 to 8 minutes to read the article, Ayush. Why it takes you 7 to 8 minutes is probably you go and reread the sentence again and again. High chances that you don't break and read the sentence. You just read the full sentence in one shot, and then because you miss some information, you try to reread the sentence. And you do this for all the sentences, and that is why it takes you more time. So you have to make sure you just break the sentence once, understand the meaning, move forward, and then relate back. Okay? So that's probably what you're doing wrong. You have to be honest to yourself and ask yourself, do I reread the whole thing again and again just to be sure? All right, let me see Himanshu's. So Himanshu says, PH and WH elaboration and author view that women receive little attention. So I'm not clear whether it's the author's view you're talking about, or whether you're talking about the views of the political historians and women's historians. All right, let me see. So Ayush, there you have it. If you read it, follow my style of reading when I read the next paragraph. Okay, I'll keep in mind and I'll point it out to you as well. So Nawal says, contrast between these two historians' areas of focus and their respective sources during the pre-Civil War period. Well, yes. Okay. So see, all of you so far have told what the paragraph has, and mostly you have pointed out the contrast. Okay. Now see the way I'll bring up the summary. But let me see if anybody else is posting their summaries. Not that I can see anyone. Okay, let me get ahead. Now see, what we are saying is both the political historians and women's historians, they leave out one aspect of history, right? So instead of me pointing out that there's a contrast, which is so evident, I am kind of looking at the overall intention of this paragraph. Okay. So this paragraph is telling us that both these historians, they leave out one aspect while focusing. So this while tells me the contrast. Okay. While focusing exclusively on another. So they leave out one aspect of history and they focus on another. What is the result? Very little written about women's political engagement. Remember, a summary doesn't have to be very detailed, but this summary not only brings out the contrast, it also brings out exactly what is the result of that contrast. So that when you try to build or put together your main point, you will find it easier. Yes, guys? Okay. All right, let me see. So I have some more summaries. Nawal says contrast between the two areas of focus and the respective sources. So everybody is talking about the contrast, but I want you to kind of understand why that contrast has been used at all. Okay. Explain the difference. Vinayak says sources and focus differ. All right. So Vinayak, that's a good summary. Anirudh says pre-war political historians say women are not important. Well, they are not saying outrightly that women are not important. Okay. They are simply not discussing women. Not discussing women, Anirudh, is not the same as saying that women are not important. Okay. Because that would become a wrong interpretation. All right. Okay. So Himanshu also. So Vinayak, remember, now Vinayak has asked a very interesting question. How did you point out from the first para that political historians and women historians leave out one aspect? They are historians, so obviously they write history. Vinayak, look at the way I'm inferring. They are historians, they write history. Okay. Political historians write about politics, they write about the emergence of the American nation, but they don't write about women. They don't discuss women. On the other hand, the women historians, they write and they discuss all about women, okay, their personal involvements and their personal movements, but they don't write about politics. So, if one writes about politics but not women, the other writes about women but not politics, which basically means what? Each of them focuses only on one thing and not on the other. Either ways, what is left out is women plus politics. Did you get that? So, all of you guys, right there on the screen is the link to set up a call with the GMAT strategy expert. Okay, GMATWhiz strategy expert. If you're interested in more questions about the course, about anything, your strategy, your approach, you can connect on that link. All right. In the meantime, I am going to, okay, let me see. Prashant says summary should be our comprehension of, one second, author's view rather than the literal description. Yes, Prashant, because the questions are not going to ask you about a literal description. The questions are mostly going to talk to you about what is the role of the paragraph, or if you're looking at deriving the main point, we have to look at the intention of the author. So the intention of the author is to show how these two fields of history missed out on one aspect of history. Okay. So NY Kim is asking, is there a tip for breaking down sentences when we cannot write on the screen? Well, breaking down sentences, Kim, that's a very interesting question that you've asked. And I'm going to show you how at GMATWhiz we teach students to break down sentences. In fact, all about involved and evolved reading is all about breaking down sentences. So each and every solution, each and every, let's say, question is discussed following this approach. All right. So I'm going to show that to you. Let me quickly move ahead with the next para here. All right. So from the previous paragraph, we are carrying forward the idea that we have these two kinds of historians who only discuss about one aspect. They don't discuss about the other aspect. All right. And neither of them discusses those two aspects put together. That is women and politics. Okay. Let's move on. However, so right at the outset, there's another transition word, which means in this paragraph, the author is going to talk about something which is kind of shifting from the view in the first paragraph. Let's see what. Most historians. So now the author is not differentiating between political historians and women's historians. Now the author is clubbing all of them and saying majority of these historians have underestimated. Underestimated means what, guys? Underestimated means they have drawn up an estimate, but a wrong estimate. not a full estimate, not a correct estimate. They have undervalued, they have downplayed. Downplayed what? The extent. Extent means the range and importance, significance. The range and importance of women's political allegiance. Let's say I don't know the meaning of this. Now, at GMATWhiz, we believe that even if you don't know the meaning of these difficult words, the context is there ahead for you to understand the meaning of those words. And I'm going to show you how in a moment. Okay, so the author believes that most of the historians have not properly estimated how important the women's political something was in the antebellum period. All right, that means the author believes women were politically important, but these historians don't think so. Okay, for example, so right away I tell myself rather, the author is going to offer an example here. Why here and why this example? Probably the author is going to tell us that how these historians have underestimated the range and importance of women's political something. Okay, so that is why the author is giving this example here to explain that entire underestimation. Okay, for example, in the presidential election campaigns of the 1840s, the Virginia Whig Party. Okay, so in the election campaign, there is a party strove to win the allegiance of Virginia's women. Now, if a party tries to win the allegiance of the women, allegiance can mean what? Support, right? See the context, how it tells you the meaning only if you look out for it. Loyalty, all right? So this Whig party, it wanted to win the support of Virginia's women. And how? By inviting these women to the rallies and speeches. Okay, so the author is telling us, see, in the 1840s, women were involved in politics. There's this party, and this party invited those women to their rallies and speeches. So all these historians leaving out women's involvement in politics, they were wrong. Okay, so the author is giving this example to show in what way these historians have underestimated women's involvement in politics, women's political role. Let's read ahead. According to Whig propaganda, so we're continuing with this Whig party, what the Whig party said. The Whig party believed women who turned out at the party's rallies. What did these women do? These women gathered information, all right, and this information enabled these women to do what? To mold party loyal families. Okay, so women gathered information that enabled them to mold party loyal families. Whose families will the women mold? They'll mold their own families, right? These women, I'm imagining these women, they go to the rally, they listen to the speeches, they go back home, they talk about the rallies and whatever they've heard at the speech at their home, and they mold their families accordingly. They try to mold their family to become loyal to that party. These women reminded men. So I'm using my SC skills here. Women is the subject, one verb is gathered information, two, the women reminded men of moral values that transcended, that means went more and beyond the party loyalty, and these women conferred moral standing on the party. So the presence of women somehow brought forward the moral values, okay, gave the party a moral let's say support, made the party look like it was correctly moral, it was honest, so to speak. All right, Virginia Democrats in response. So there's another party here. And we're still talking about the example, guys, by the way. The example to prove that most historians have underestimated. And in this example, now the author is talking about another party. This party, the other party, in response to what? To whatever the Whig party was doing, probably, began to make similar appeals to women. Okay, they also started inviting these women to rallies and speeches. And by the mid-1850s, inclusion of women in the rituals of party politics had become commonplace. So this tells us that women during the pre-Civil War, in the antebellum period, were actually involved in politics. All right, they did play a role, and a significant role. They gathered information to mold party loyal families. They reminded men of moral values. They conferred moral standing on the party. Such a lot. So the Virginia party, by the mid-1850s, inclusion of women had become commonplace, and the ideology that justified such inclusion had been assimilated or accepted by the Democrats. So, if I sum all of it up, what do I have? Okay, author's opinion is majority of the historians have downplayed women's role in politics in the antebellum period, and the example is given to support the author's opinion. The example shows how women played a big role in politics. If I have to sum this up in one short line, I would say, although women played an important role in politics in antebellum period, most historians have downplayed that role. And if I put it together here, just give me a moment, guys. Just wanted a quick drink of water, guys. So now that I have the para summaries, all right, I am going to put all of it together here. See? So this is literally what you have to do. Of course, this for the purposes of presenting this to you, I have used full sentences. But when you're writing such summaries or when you're kind of mentally summarizing, you will just do it in a few words, 5-6 words for each para, and then 5-6 words for the main point. Okay. So here we have the first paragraph says that both the historians, left out one aspect of history, and very little as a result was written about women's political engagement. All right. So, and then we have it that most historians downplay the role, although women played a role. So, if I put all of that together, the main point that comes across is in the antebellum period. Okay. So, I've covered the period. Different historians, I've covered historians, have focused differently. I've covered the difference in focus on women's political involvement. So this covers, if you see, most of the first paragraph. Remember, my summary has to be, my main point has to be all inclusive. It should cover the entire paragraph. Okay. But by and large, these historians have downplayed that role. This covers the second paragraph. And there you have it. So guys, again, I chose a slightly simple passage today. The first passage, the next passage is going to be really difficult, really, really difficult. And I want you all to sharpen your, your gray cells and sit tight. But for now, let's go to the question that still remains to be solved. So Kim, I hope you can see how breaking down of those sentences can help. All right. Harun, Kim, Prashant, all of you. Ayush, Naval, Anmol, Vinayak, Anirudh, Pooja, Himanshu, Felix. I hope all of you are able to see how easy it becomes to arrive at those para summaries if you are reading the right way, if you are involving yourself. So now when we look at the question, this was the question, right? I have brought forward the main idea as we have summarized. Okay. And now we are going to look at the primary purpose of the passage and see there are these words. So each of these primary purpose questions can be each of the answer choices on such questions can be divided into two parts, guys. One is the verb part, examine, establish, present, analyze, evaluate. Okay, that's the verb, that's the purpose. And then you have the content of the verb. So you are to examine these choices on two levels. Okay, first, do these words apply to the purpose? Okay, and then next, does that purpose apply to that content? So let's get started. The primary purpose of the passage as a whole is to examine. Now remember, examine meant to weigh the pros and cons and to arrive at your own conclusion. And I ask myself, is the author looking at the pros and cons of anything? Well, he is talking about the two different aspects or the difference between the two kinds of historians, but really he's not talking about the advantages and disadvantages of any. So I would not really be very happy selecting examine. Okay. Let me look at the content also. So is the primary purpose of the author to examine the tactics, that means the strategy of antebellum political parties with regard to women? Well, remember, all the tactics of the political parties with regard to women was just a part of an example. Therefore, definitely the author's purpose is not to examine the example, right? And this choice is therefore out because of two reasons. One, the confusing word is incorrect here. It's a confusing word. Second, this is limited in scope. It just talks about the example. It doesn't cover the entire passage. So A is not the answer. None of you marked it. My purpose of telling you how to eliminate A was just to show you how each choice should be eliminated. Some of you marked B as the correct answer. Let's see whether it is B correct or not. Now remember, establish meant prove, right? Now, is the author out to prove anything? Definitely not. Let's see prove what? The effect of women's involvement in politics. Does the author talk about the effect of the involvement? The author does talk about the example to show that women were involved in politics, but nowhere does the author talk about the effect of the involvement. All right. So this is also incorrect. Okay. It's distortion of the information in the passage. The passage talks about women's involvement in politics in the antebellum period. So this part is what we would call half truth, but the effect is not discussed anywhere, and definitely the author is not out to prove anything. So this choice is also out. So those of you who mark B, see how easy it becomes to eliminate the choice if you are following the right methodology. Present. Now, present is simply about putting forward some details. It belongs to group 1, confusing words. It's almost the same as discuss, describe, present. Let's see. So I'm okay with the word present because the author is presenting a certain aspect of political and women's history. Let's see what. Present a deficiency. Now, let me ask the question. Is there any deficiency that the author is pointing out at? Yes. The author is the author is pointing out that most historians have underestimated. That's a deficiency. I can say that that's a deficiency. So I'm going to put a tick here. In the study of a particular historical period. So yes, it's a deficiency has been pointed out in the study. When we say study, we're talking about the political historians studying the political history, women's historians studying women's history, and a deficiency has been pointed out in the study of the antebellum period. So C is really strong, and I'm going to hold on to that. Let me move forward. Analyze. Again, analyze belongs to the same group as examine. Is the author analyzing anything? Is the author weighing the pros and cons and advantage and disadvantage? No, not really. The methodologies in two differing fields of historical inquiry. Now look at how very cleverly all of this has been mixed. Definitely there are two differing fields of historical inquiry, but really are we talking about methodologies? Well, focus and sources, if you call that methodology. But I would say this is kind of easily ruled out. None of you chose that. So analyze is the wrong word. Evaluate. What do we do in evaluate questions? We try to see if some conclusion is more believable or not. Is that what the author is trying to do here? No, the author is not trying to weigh the pros and cons of what these historians say. Okay, let's see, evaluate what? Historians' opinions. Is the author trying to say which historian is correct? Not really. The author is just saying that historians underestimate something regarding, so historians' opinions regarding the political allegiance of women before the Civil War. So the author is definitely not evaluating the opinion, and therefore this is also out. So the correct answer is C. Yes, guys, any comment on that? So evaluate, Himanshu, is not what the author is doing here. The author is not trying to kind of judge which historian is correct and which historian is not, which party is correct and which party is not. The author is blandly stating without anything else that there are these historians who are underestimating things, and then the author gives the example to support his argument. but the author doesn't try to evaluate anything. All right, guys. A quick yes would be great, and then I want to show you. So when we talk about, you've seen how I was reading, how I was breaking down sentences, and it might have looked very effortless to you. Okay, so Himanshu, evaluate would be, let's say, there is an opinion that the author states, okay, some third party opinion, and then the author talks about both sides of that opinion. If the opinion is true, what then? If the opinion is not true, what then? And then draws a conclusion. That would be evaluate. I'm fine, Arindam, not an issue. We still have a wonderful passage waiting for us. Okay, yes, Felix, mastering the confusing words is one part of eliminating the other choices. There are a lot of other things that we need to do. So Himanshu, I hope that explains to you the usage of evaluate. So, Naval, if we sit down to elaborate more on examine and establish, we will be leaving out a lot of other aspects. Okay, but do understand, Naval, that these words, although on the surface they look very close to each other, they have different meanings. All right, um, and these are just an example. There are a lot more similar words. All right. So I'm so sorry for, in the interest of the time, we can't really go deeper into that, Naval. But looking forward to interacting with you on the platform. All right. So Vinayak, think about the CR evaluate questions. What do you do there? You try to evaluate the conclusion. That means you try to judge whether the conclusion is believable, more believable, or less believable, right? So what do? You try to bring out information in favor or against the conclusion, isn't it? So here also, is the author trying to tell us that the historians, should we believe the historians or should we not believe them? No, the author is blandly stating that the historians are, wrong. So the author is not presenting the evaluation, Vinayak. The author is straight away giving us the conclusion without presenting any evaluation. An evaluation would mean that some working has been done and then some conclusion has been reached. Okay. All right, guys. So this method of reading is what we concentrate, what we focus on. But before that, another question based on the same passage. You will realize that once you get the main idea, the primary purpose of a passage, it becomes very easy to solve other questions related to that passage. Okay. Quickly, you have 1.5 minutes to solve this question. Same passage, guys. I'm going to mute myself in the meantime. All right. I'm going to share with you the link to the free trial of the course. And I'm going to give you a quick intro to the course as well. Very subtle difference, Vinayak. Yes. Great. Wonderful to see. So let me just quickly post the link to the free trial version of our course. You can check out similar such details there. So I want you to solve this question and then I'm going to share the link with you guys. Let me mute myself in the meantime. You can start putting in your answers the moment you have solved them, guys. Don't have to wait. All right, guys, I've started to get some answers here. So I have Ruhin Vinayak saying it's E. Amit Parab says it's D. Hanky Power says it's E. Prince says it's E. Let's wait for a few more of the answer choices. Felix says C. And I would love to believe that some of your answers are guided by the discussion that we had on the passage. Prince says E, Felix says C, Atul says E. Mostly it seems to be a fight between C and E. All right. Yes, guys, some more. There are a lot more of you out there. Would love to see your answers, guys. So Kim says E, Christopher says D. Wonderful. Rajveer says E. Vanshika, either A or E. Okay, Vanshika. So, Vanshika, watch out how I rule out A or I rule out E. Okay, either ways. Because whenever you're confused between two options, it's very important to know how to rule out those two options. Or, sorry, how to rule out one of those two options if the correct answer is between one of them. Thunderbird says C, Rajveer says E. All right, so let me move ahead with discussing this. All right. The question is the author of the passage. Okay. So we're going to talk about the author's point of view. And it's really very important. That is why it's very important to notice the author's point of view. All right. The author of the passage would be most likely to agree with. So the author most likely to agree with which of the following statements regarding, all right, these statements are going to be about who? Most historians of the antebellum period. Now, without going back to my passage, and because I was reading my passage in the involved and evolved manner, I can quickly recall that, well, the author used the word underestimated. Most of the historians underestimated or did not correctly draw up an estimate of how the women were politically involved in that period, right? That's what I can remember quickly. And right now, I'm not going to go back to the passage for verification. I will first rule out the choices which I can rule out absolutely. So let's get started. They, now the they here refers to the this most historians category. You know, these most historians here. They have failed. Okay, so can I use the word failed? A little strong, but all right. They have failed to adequately contrast. Now, does the author accuse them of failing to draw a contrast between anything? No. Okay. The author is not accusing them of not drawing up the correct contrast. And let's see, contrast what? The differing roles that women played. Did the women play different roles in the party? Like they played the role of a mother and wife and daughter and secretary and boss. Is that it? No. We're not talking about the different roles. So this is also some, see how cleverly the truth and the distortion is mixed up here. We call it the distortion and half truth trap at GMATWhiz. Okay, so nowhere the author talks about differing roles. Nowhere does the author talk about historians failing to contrast something. So A is out. Vanshika, I hope you understood why A is out, how to rule out the choices. Focus on each and every word because that's the twist. All right, let's see B. So most historians have failed, again that word failed, let's see, to see, okay, that political propaganda. Okay, so does the author, okay, accuse these historians of failing to see anything about the political propaganda? Not really. He accuses the historians of underestimating women's role in the party politics. But he does not accuse the historians of not being able to see something in the political propaganda. And then the rest of the sentence is all about what this propaganda is. The propaganda is advocating women's political involvement. Okay. So this is just a modifier for propaganda. But the author is accusing, so this sentence is saying the author believes that the historians failed to see that the political propaganda did not reflect the reality of women's actual roles. Is it like that, that the Whig party propaganda did not reflect what was women's roles? No. Propaganda was definitely saying that they believed that these women were helpful in kind of boosting their party morale, boosting their party loyalty. So B is also out. The historians have incorrectly assumed, I'll hold on to this because incorrectly assumed is way lighter than failed, because we're talking about underestimating. Underestimating means not being completely wrong, but not being completely right either. All right. So incorrectly assumed what? That, okay, women's party loyalty, all right. Remember, we're talking about women's allegiance, played a small role. So the historians have are wrong about the fact that women's loyalty played a small role. Remember, we were talking about they have underestimated the I think the range and importance of women's roles in party politics. So I can definitely hold on to this choice. All right, I'm going to hold on to C for the moment. Let's see what D says. They have misinterpreted. Nah, the author doesn't accuse them of misinterpretation. Wrong word to be used for underestimation, guys. They have misinterpreted descriptions of women's involvement in party politics in the records of. Look at how this is brought here. This is not even related uh, to the entire party politics rigmarole. So D is out. They have overlooked. All right. Can I use the word overlooked for underestimation? Well, if I'm not drawing up the correct estimate, I'm definitely overlooking something. Overlooked what? The role that women's political activities, I'm a little concerned with the word, but okay. The role that the women's activities played in women's rights movements. This is outright distortion, guys. So, some of you who marked E, you fell in this trap. You read probably till women's activities and played, and but you did not see this women's rights movement because you are not reading the answer choices the way you should. Okay. In fact, all of the reading should be done in an involved and evolved manner, guys, to get the right meaning. So E is correct so far till they have overlooked the role that women's political activities played, but thereafter, that's total distortion. And therefore, the correct answer is C. A lot of you got that right, guys. So a big clap for all of you. A lot of you got C correct. So I hope those of you did not get it right can actually see what you could have done to get it right. Don't worry, guys. This is the learning stage. And at this stage, your concern should be how to best use the approach, how to use the correct approach. So Sonu, Bubio Gogo, Rajveer, Banshika, Christopher, Atul, Prince, Anki, Amit, Vinayak, Ruhin. I hope all of you can see how the correct answer is not E, right? And you'll agree with me that you got it wrong because you kind of focused only on part of the answer choice. So there's the link to the free trial version of our course, guys. This wonderful, wonderful GMATWhiz course where we focus on, teaching you how to read properly. The key difference between normal reading is the reading speed versus the comprehension speed. We focus on comprehending better, not just the reading speed. If you focus on reading speed, you will miss out on comprehension, guys. You will. And that is where involved and evolved reading is very, very important. You learn to think like the author. You understand the author's point of view. All right. You saw me do it. You saw me break the sentence into small chunks. You saw me derive the meaning of that chunk. You saw me relating back the subsequent sentences to the previous sentences to draw the intended meaning, to draw the correct meaning. You saw me trying to understand what the author is telling us. You saw me concentrating on transition words and conjunctions. Okay. You saw me how I use those transition words to relate back the meaning. And you saw me draw up the summary of each paragraph and finally draw up the main point. Okay. So all of this, requires the right set of skills. And a GMAT student learns these skills right at the outset. Where to pause. We teach you these checkpoints, where to break, because they matter a lot. where you break matters a lot. All right, we teach you, GMATWhiz student learns how to take care of complex words. Remember, allegiance, even if you don't know what it means, you can derive the meaning if you are patient and if you're looking out for it. Where are the facts, where are the opinions? You need to concentrate, because you have a lot of these questions asking about the opinion of the author, opinion of so and so, opinion of so and so. You need to be careful. So dedicated video lessons to teach you about the importance of opinions, and then differentiating which one is the author's opinion and which one is not the author's opinion, and finally to understand the overall intent. So reading and comprehension is a skill, guys, and it should be learned like a skill. You don't just rush through something to learn, you don't rush through a skill to learn it. You have to imbibe it. You have to learn how to read the passages first, then only you can learn how to solve the question. We have these dedicated over 10 hours of dedicated skill builders to show you how to read in an involved and evolved manner. you know how to make use of different aspects of reading, the importance of purpose of opinions in RC, how to use the transition words to get at the meaning of the various sentences, how to relate them together, how to form the structure. All right, and this wonderful course is right now up for grabs on this 4th of July sale, guys. This is perhaps one of the best prices right now in the world, and that's all because of this sale here. You get a massive 57% off on the online prep course. All right, that includes quant and verbal, guys. All right, so the sale is up for grabs for you right now. In fact, apart from the online prep course, that is the online platform, we also offer private tutoring, one-to-one tutoring, and a lot of my students have, our students have benefited from the private tutoring, because there is literally somebody to point out where you're going wrong. There's literally somebody to tell you that, okay, you might believe you're doing the right thing, but you might not be. So how do you get to know that? Somebody pointing it out to you. Of course, our AI driven platform does do that to a large extent, and you can also talk to mentors on the platform, but you also have the private tutoring if you are interested in. So guys, go grab that course, all right, while it's still on the 4th of July sale. All right, so next, what I'm going to bring up, I can see, guys. Okay, let me look at. All right, wonderful. Are you excited? Do you want to see another, do you want to solve another passage? Yes, guys? Excited? I'm going to bring up the next passage only if you say you're excited. You want to solve that. Guys, let me see some vote of confidence out there. Okay, so Amit and Prashant definitely want to solve more passages. So does Kim. And that exclamation mark is very heartening to see, Kim. Felix, Rajveer. All right, guys. So now this passage is a wee bit tougher. All right. But I want each of you to at least try to read in the involved and evolved manner. All right, and I'm sure you will find that you're able to understand the passage better. All right, guys, so here comes the next passage. I have deliberately not put the question for you up right now, but I want you to read this passage and to write down small summaries for each of the paragraphs, and to write down a single sentence summary for the main primary purpose, okay? And then I'm going to bring forward the question for you. All right, so I'm going to give you approximately, let me see, I'm going to give you 5 minutes in all, so that you can read the two paragraphs and write the summaries as well. All right, guys, get going. Your time starts now. I'm going to mute myself in the meantime. If you have any queries, you can post it in the comment box, guys. Let me just remove this link. Give me a moment so that you can see the passage better. There it is. Okay, guys. So you can start putting in your main point summary. First, I want to go through your summaries, then I'm going to bring up the question. Come on, guys. Let's see what is your understanding of the main idea of the passage. Okay, main idea, primary purpose, main idea, main point of the passage. What do you think is the author trying to convey in this or through this passage? Go ahead. Yes, guys, go ahead. Let me wait. I'm sure your summaries are going to start coming up. It's going to be interesting seeing what you come up with. All right, I guess you guys are taking some time to type it out. Don't worry about the grammar of it. I'm going to adjust. I want you to just write the main point summary or the main idea. Let me mute myself while you're at it. Yes, guys, I'm like, okay, wonderful. We have Felix saying Antonia presents the economic importance of women, specifically Mexican American. All right, Felix. So you've got bits and parts of it right. So you've got the word economic right. You've got the word Mexican American. You've got the word women right. But the combination is not quite right. So we're going to look out for the combination. Ruhin says rich white kids protected. No, California girls through laws. Hmm, well, it's Ruhin. Rich is right. Okay. California girls protected through laws is right, but kids, white kids, I don't quite see from where you got the word kids. So we'll look at where you went wrong. Prashant says, explain the contrast between Hispanic women situation and Californianas using an illustration. Uh, Now, Prashant, that's a very interesting thing because the Hispanic women and the Californianas were the same. All right, they were not different. So I'm going to point out how to understand that. Yes, guys, some of the others, I'm really looking forward to your summaries. Don't worry if it's wrong. I mean, see, we are all here to understand processes better, right? And it doesn't matter if we make mistakes. Make the mistakes and find out the reason. Okay, so let's see. Thunderbird is saying, explain why the literary portrayals of Mexican women were skewed from the norm. Wonderful, Thunderbird. I wish I could really clap and pat your back. That's a very, very nice way of putting it. The passage is trying to explain why the literary portrayal of Mexican women were different from the norm. So, what the norm is, we will talk, but very, very well written summary. Very good, Thunderbird. Let's see what Kim writes. And for those of you who are wondering how to reach that summary, I'll show you guys. You'll just have to be patient. Just give me 15-20 minutes of your time. So Kim says Californianas were depicted glamorously in literature because of wonderful Kim. That's also a beautiful way of writing the summary. All right. Amit says industrialization affected Mexican American women as well as other US women. Just the opposite, Amit. The passage says that industrialization did affect women in general in the 19th century, but it affected the non-Hispanic women more than the Hispanic women because the Hispanic women were protected by laws. All right. So, guys, are you ready? It's a slightly difficult passage, but I'll show you how this can also be decoded, guys. So, thank you so much for your interaction, guys. And trust me, this is really, it means a lot to me, you talking back to me. So, let's get started, guys. Let's see how this could have been made simpler and easier. All right. Okay, Aditya is saying something here. The difference in the portrayal of Hispanic women by historians and non-Hispanic. Very good, Aditya. That's also a very nice way of, very succinct, very short way of putting the main point across. Okay, the difference in the portrayal of Mexican women, that is Hispanic women, by historians and non-Hispanic novelists. All right, Aditya. Atul says author discusses about Anton. I think you meant AN was about American and its work about the. All right. So Antonia. Author discusses about Antonia and the work about Mexican women, but for economic importance, Californiana women were preferred, but not the common Mexican women. Atul, trust me, I think you've got the idea, although you're not being able to write it the right way, but good. Yes, there is definitely that point about how Mexican women were given preference, except that Californianas were also the Mexican women. All right. The common Mexican women were not preferred. Very good, Atul. Aman says the author speaks about how history is written by unilateral direction of few specific novelists. However, women in California had it slightly better. So, Aman, remember which women in California? The Hispanic women who were known as Californianas. For them, things were better because the Hispanic law protected them. Okay, very good. So, but I have seen a lot of you got uh, the important parts of the passage right. I'm going to show you how to weave all of it together, guys. All right. So let's get started. Okay, I'm just going to stop my camera because it sort of distracts me. And let's get started. Okay. But before that, I want you to solve this question quickly. Go ahead, guys. You have a minute to solve this question. Try to examine the answer choices the way I've shown you guys. Okay. Look at the verb and then look at the content of the verb. All right. So Manish says A. What about the others? You can start putting in your answers. Kim says A. All right. Let's see. Even I don't know whether the A, I mean, I don't remember whether A is the answer. I'll go through the question with you. Prashant says C. Okay. So far we have A and C as contenders. Christopher says C. Felix says C. All right. Rohin says A. Come on, the others. There are so many of you out there. Raj Rita says C. Abhishek says A. So A, C. Sakshi says A. So it's really running between A and C so far, right? Okay. Aman says C. How about the others? Thunderbird, Sonu, Atul, Sarthak, Harsh, Rajveer. Where are you guys? Okay, let me see. I think I've got some. Thunderbird says C. Amit says C. All right. So let's see whether it's C or A. Wow, that was a nice. Okay, so here goes my analysis. The primary purpose of the passage is to what? Should I straight away give you the answer? No. I'm going to quickly do the passage analysis. Now, guys, I'm not going to go very slowly because we don't have that much of time, but I'm going to show you how I arrived at the main point, all right? See, if I start reading from here, Antonio Castaneda has utilized scholarship. Let's say I don't understand the word scholarship. I only know scholarship means the reduction in fees. So she can't have utilized reduction in fees because we're talking about she has utilized something from women's studies and Mexican American history. So she has utilized these two sources to do what? What is her intention? Remember, intention is very important. Her intention is to examine 19th century literary portrayals of Mexican women. So, if I kind of shortlist this thing, the author introduces the subject studied by Antonio Castaneda. All right. And the subject is how Mexican women of the 19th century were portrayed in the literature of that time. Literary portrayal means portrayal in literature. All right. And then Castaneda notes something about what scholars of this. Remember, she studied the women's history, the Mexican American women's history, and from there she is saying what those historians are saying. So, according to Castaneda, some scholars are making an observation about the male novelists in the US. Okay, what are the male novelists saying? That is what Castaneda is noting down. And these novelists are always portraying women only in their domestic roles of wife and mother. How did I know that? Okay. Male novelists of the period define women solely in their domestic roles of wife and mother. And this additional information tells us how women were economically affected because of the transition to factory based industrial economy. All right. And here the scholars are also telling us why they think that 19th century male writers portrayed women only in the domestic roles. That was because women's traditional economic role got a hit by the industrialization. All right. Okay. But the main point here is Castaneda wants to study this, and for studying that, she is noting down what these male writers are writing. And she notes one difference between Mexican women and non-Mexican women. Now, some of you got that wrong. Let me show you how to infer. Castaneda finds that during the same period that saw non-Hispanic women. Okay, so let's say I don't know what is Hispanic. How will I relate? Hold on. Remember, the passage is about portrayal of Mexican women. So let's see who these non-Hispanic women are. This period saw non-Hispanic women being economically displaced by industrialization. Okay, but Hispanic law in territorial California protected the economic position of Californianas. Who are these Californianas? The Mexican women. If Mexican women are Californianas and Hispanic law protects Californianas, it means Mexican equals to Hispanic. I mean, why will the Hispanic law protect Mexican women if Hispanic is not related to Mexican? So non-Hispanic women are the other women, maybe the American women, all right? And Mexican women are the Hispanic women. That is how I am going to infer that Hispanic means Mexican. All right. So Antonio Castaneda also notes there is a difference between the Mexican women in California and non-Mexican women. What is the difference? The Californianas, that is the Mexican women, their economic position was slightly better. They had some property rights, they had inheritance rights equal to those of males. But these other non-Hispanic women, that was not the same for them. So if I have to quickly summarize this paragraph only, wait, let me just clear this up. I would summarize this. Castaneda examines how Mexican women of the 19th century were portrayed in the literature of that time and identifies an economic difference between the Mexican women and other American women. Okay, the main idea is this part, the first part. She examines how they were portrayed in literature. That is the intention. Okay, so the author is telling us what Castaneda's intention was and what she noted. Okay, then when we move to, so let's see if I have any, guys, if you have any queries. Okay, all right, great. Let me continue quickly. I'm sure you're waiting for Castaneda. So we're continuing what Castaneda, we are continuing with the idea of checking out or examining the literary portrayal of Mexican women in the 19th century. Let's read ahead. For Castaneda, the laws explain a stereotypical plot created by who? Stereotypical. Let's say I don't know what is stereotypical, but I do know what is typical, right? So probably we are talking about a general, a usual plot. Let me read ahead. And this plot was created by non-Hispanic novelists. That means non-Mexican, right? So let me see. Let's see what these non-Mexican writers created. What kind of plot they created? They created a plot which had the story of ambitious non-Hispanic merchant. Again, non-Hispanic means non-Mexican. So you had a non-Mexican. Okay, ambitious merchant means one who wants to make money, desirous of marrying an elite Californiana. Who is the Californiana? The Mexican woman of Californiana, of California, who had some property rights. So basically, we are told that the Hispanic law explains why male non-Hispanic authors created a typical plot. The plot was you had these fortune-seeking non-Hispanic men who want to marry rich Hispanic women. Okay, the Californianas. All right. And then the author tells us these novels' favorable portrayal of such women, that is the Mexican women, is noteworthy. Why is it noteworthy? The author is asking us to take note of this favorable portrayal. Why? There's a transition word since. It's given to us that Mexican American historians concluded that unflattering depiction of Mexicans. Now, Mexicans means which Mexicans? Women, men, or general Mexicans? Since nothing is mentioned here, we will assume that this is depictions of Mexicans in general. Okay, so unflattering, bad depictions of Mexicans in literature was important in getting the US public support for this war involving Mexico and America, probably. And therefore, I can understand, relating back, that why it was noteworthy that Mexican women who had property rights, they were portrayed favorably, but the other Mexicans were portrayed in a very unflattering manner. And there was a reason behind it. Okay, so there is a contradiction. The novels show the Californianas in a good light, but portray the common Mexicans in a bad light. See how I'm simplifying those convoluted sentences. The moment you simplify it in your mind, when you're answering the questions, things will strike you very, very clearly. The importance of economic alliances forged through the marriages explains this contradiction. Which contradiction? This contradiction. Right? This is the contradiction. Sorry, my spelling has gone wrong. Contradiction. Sorry, guys. Okay. Always identify this example, this contradiction. I'm like very clued into these words because of their real life economic significance. Whose real life economic significance? The Californianas. The Californianas were portrayed more favorably than were the others of the same nationality. So remember, Antonio Castaneda was trying to examine how the Mexican women of that period were portrayed in literature. And in the second paragraph, we have it that in literature, the Mexican women who had money, who had inheritance rights, were portrayed favorably, but the other Mexicans in general, the men and maybe those who did not have money to their name, they were portrayed unfavorably. The summary of this paragraph is, this paragraph explains why the non-Hispanic writers typically portrayed the rich Mexican women in California favorably in their novels, but at the same time portrayed other Mexicans unfavorably. So, see how easy it becomes. Guys, was this easier for you guys? Is the understanding of the passage better now? Because I'm going to bring up one more question on this passage. 750 level question, guys. So, are you with me? Does this make sense to you? I would love to hear back from you your idea about how you feel about this involved and evolved reading, how it is helping you reach the correct understanding of the passage, guys. Okay, great. Nice to see all those yeses, it makes me want to go on. All right, thank you so much, Ruhin, Prashant, Felix, Thunderbird, Amit, Raj, Rita, Atul. Thank you so much, all of you. Christopher. Okay, guys. So let me now put all of it together. Okay. The first paragraph summary is Castaneda examines. Okay. Castaneda examines how Mexican women of the 19th century were portrayed in the literature of that time. Okay. And the second paragraph explains why the non-Hispanic writers typically portrayed the rich Mexican women in California favorably. Okay, so if I put that together, the main point is the author wants to explain how and why the rich Mexican women in California came to be typically portrayed in a favorable manner in the novels by non-Mexican writers. So I have included how and why, I have included rich Mexican women, I have included typical portrayal, I have included favorable manner, I've included non-Mexican writers. I've got all the main points. And I am going to bring that forward to my question. So if I go back, I remember most of the answer choices were between A and C, right? Okay, so now's the time to see whether it is A or C. Felix, is the screen clear? If it is not clear, I think you'll just need to rejoin or refresh your page. All right. The others, is the screen clear, guys? Felix is feeling the screen is not clear. Is the screen clear, all the others? Because I think it could be an issue with the net or something. Okay, is it clear now? So Felix says yes. Others? Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys. Let me continue. So, primary purpose of the passage is to trace. Now, tracing is all about going back in time. Tracing is like, okay, 1900 this happened, 21st century this happened, 22nd century this happened, all right, middle of the year, end of the year. Tracing is all about going back, traveling back to the origins. So I ask myself, is the author trying to go back to the origin of something? Well, the author is trying to understand the portrayal of Mexican women in the 19th century. So let me hold on to the word trace for a moment. Historical influences. No historical influences have been mentioned anywhere, guys. The influence of industrialization has been mentioned. Economic influences have been mentioned. But historical influences, the only historical influence that was mentioned was the Mexican-American War. But I would kind of hold judgment on that. So let me just, put a question mark here too. Is the purpose to trace, that means go back in time to check out the historical influences on the depiction of Mexican Americans. This is wrong, guys. It's not about Mexican Americans. It's very explicitly about Mexican American women. All right, Hispanic women in the US in the 19th century. It is definitely not about the depiction of Mexican Americans. So those of you who marked A, guys, I think you kind of missed out on that. You assumed that we were talking about the Mexican Americans in general. But we're not talking about depiction of Mexican Americans in general. We are definitely talking about Mexican American women, all right, in literature. So A falls short of that. There is a certain amount of distortion. Instead of saying Mexican American women, we're talking about Mexican Americans, and the confusing word trace is not really the right word here. All right. Explain. Okay. We definitely use the word explain here. And let's see how research in history has been affected by scholarship. So clearly, there is no explanation about research in history being affected by scholarship in women's study. This is out of scope, and none of you have marked me. Describe. So a lot of details given about these Californianas and about the plot. So I can hold on to the word describe. Describe the historical origins. That means how something came into being of a literary stereotype. Well, literary stereotype. Now remember, my central idea was explains how and why the rich Mexican women came to be typically portrayed in a favorable manner. So, can it be a stereotype is typical portrayal, and literary means literature, okay? And how they came to be portrayed, that is explained by the Hispanic law and the economic reasons, the economic importance. So, I can hold on to C for the moment. D. Discuss ways. Or does the author discuss any ways, guys? No. In which writers have sought to critique a dominant culture. Do we know that the Mexicans were a dominant culture? We don't know. All of this is totally out of scope, and discuss ways is confusing word. Evaluate both sides in a scholarly debate. Is there a debate mentioned in the passage? No. Is the debate about prominent literary stereotype? There is no debate about the stereotype that the author offers, and the author is definitely not evaluating which side of the debate, because there exists no debate. So C is the right answer, guys. Absolutely. So those of you who marked C, you were bang on target. Great, guys. So I hope those of you who marked A, you can see why it's not the correct answer. Small mistake, the focus was all about examining how Mexican women were portrayed, not Mexican Americans were portrayed. Okay. So I'm going to bring up the next question, guys. Very, very interesting question. Here it comes. Go ahead. Solve this. In case you guys need, I think if you want to look at the passage once more, I'll take you back to that slide. But I want you to get a good understanding of the question and try to solve it without looking at the passage. Try. Let's see what the question is asking us. The question is asking us the apparent contradiction mentioned in line 29 refers to which discrepancy? What is the apparent contradiction mentioned? What is the apparent contradiction about? So I'll take you back to my explanation slide, guys. Hold on. Just hold on a moment. Yeah. This was where we were talking about the apparent contradiction. So if you want, you can take a quick look here. I'm going to give you 30 seconds here, and then I'm going to take you back to the slide. Okay? You have 30, 40 seconds to go through this. The question is, what is this apparent contradiction all about? All right, guys, I'm going to take you back to the question. So give me a moment. Here comes the question. You can start putting in your answer. All right, let me see. So Ravi says B, Prashant says D, Rajrita says D, Thunderbird says, okay, hold on. Thunderbird says D, Aditya is saying D, Arindam is saying D, Amit is saying A, Aman is saying D, Ayush is saying D. Guys, did the analysis help? Ruhin, Ayush, Arindam, Amit, Thunderbird, Rajrita, Ravi, Prashant, did the analysis help? Christopher, Vinayak. I can see that a lot of you have marked D. Some of you have marked B. And yeah, it's mostly between B and D. 1A, there we have Amit. So let's see. Okay. Let's quickly analyze this. In the meantime, I am going to, all right, let me just, Prashant says save time as well. Okay, Prashant. So my pre-thinking would be something like this. I would remember this. The apparent contradiction was mentioned where we were talking about favorable portrayal of women noteworthy and unflattering literary depiction of Mexicans. And this apparent contradiction can only refer to the previous sentence. So the contradiction was favorable portrayal of Mexican women versus unfavorable depiction of Mexicans in general. All right. And that is, let's see in which choice. A says the apparent contradiction refers to the discrepancy between the legal status of Mexican women in California. No, it was not about legal status. And this is not even mentioned in the passage, their status in the US. So A is totally, sorry guys, A is totally out. Unflattering depiction of Mexicans in novels, yes. That was one part of the contradiction, here. And the actual public sentiment about Mexican American war, no, that was not, this is wrong. The contradiction is between, see, you can have a contrast between two equal things, right? Portrayal versus portrayal, all right? You can't have the sentiment versus the portrayal, okay? C, so B is out. A few of you chose B. Existence of marriage, existence of many marriages between Californianas and non-Hispanic merchants, and the strictures, they aren't even mentioned. And in any case, the discrepancy is not about marriages. So that's out. Literary depiction of elite Californianas, yes, here. And the literary depiction of other Mexican individuals, yes, here. So D is the answer, and most of you got that right. I just wanted to show you that if you read in the right manner, if you arrive at the right understanding, you will arrive at the right answer, guys. It won't take you very long. That was the purpose of deliberately letting you see the slide where I had done the analysis of this contradiction. Because you need to realize what helps. You need to work at this method. Novelistic portrayals of elite Californianas, privileged lives, but it was not about the privileged lives as such. It was just novelistic portrayal, favorable portrayal of elite Californianas. And the actual circumstances, definitely not. So ease out. Guys, any queries? You can see very, very clearly how this helps, all right? I am posting the link to the free trial version of our course and the link uh, uh, to schedule a call with our strategy expert. All right, both the links are there. All right, you can talk to a strategy expert at any point of time for anything. All right, guys. Any other questions you have related to your preparation, related to our course, related to any of those things, please feel free to ask. And in the meantime, let me once again remind you guys about this amazing sale. All right, 57% off on the online GMAT prep course, guys, which has over, lots of mocks, the entire question bank, that is our whiz quiz, video lessons, amazing insights. You have seen some samples today. Uh, and if you are interested in private tutoring, we also offer that, a one-on-one tutoring with top experts in the industry, both for quant and for verbal. Any other queries you have, guys, please feel free to ask. Thunderbird, you're most welcome for the session. I'm almost about to end the session as well. So, Felix, we have sessions regularly on the YouTube and other than the YouTube as well, on various aspects of sentence correction and critical reasoning as well. So, if you have attended today's session by registering with your email ID, you will probably get a link to those webinars as well. Usually, we have YouTube webinars every Monday at 7:30. The topics are different. I think the next webinar, verbal webinar, so we have a webinar next Monday also, but the next verbal webinar will be on this will be on sentence correction on the 2nd of August. All right. um, Rajrita saying, how would you recommend for someone who's trying to improve RC through self-study? So Rajrita, if you believe you can discipline yourself enough to adopt this involved and evolved reading approach, I would say you can definitely go for the GMATWhiz course. All right. But if you, one thing is always there has to be somebody or something to tell you that you're going the right way. Either you have a course which tells you that you're doing things right, or you have someone tell you you're doing things right. But what you need to do, Rajita, is you definitely need to follow a step-by-step approach to building reading skills. It's not just about solving passages. You can solve hundreds of passages. Without the right approach, you'll plateau, you'll stay at the same level. If you want to improve skills, you'll need to know what other areas you need to improve your skills on. So I would say you can definitely improve through self study. It's not that you can't, but it won't be only through solving questions randomly. You have to learn the skill of reading properly. I would suggest you definitely try out the free trial version of GMATWhiz. So Felix, let me give you a rough idea. Let's say somebody was solving this Antonia Castaneda passage on the exam, all right? On the exam, I'm saying. That is after you have practiced and you're a master at this approach. Then it should take you about, and there are, let's say, 4 questions, okay? So we say approximately it should take you 2 minutes per RC question, approximately. Some easy questions, some hard questions. So that 2 minutes includes the reading time of the passage. So 8 minutes. But a realistic time frame would be anything between 9 and 9.5 minutes to solve Antonio Castaneda passage with 4 questions. Does that answer the question, Felix? Your maximum time should be allotted to reading the passage, Felix, instead of allotting maximum time to the answer choices. Because if you don't read the passage properly, you will just keep going back and forth between the passage and the question. And in any case, you will land up taking a lot of time and still not getting the accuracy you desire. So it makes a lot of sense to have a very clear understanding of the passage and take less time on solving the questions. You balance it out that way. You're welcome, Felix. Guys, any other queries that you have, I would be glad to answer. Any other queries you have, guys? It was very nice having you on board, Felix. Rajrita, Thunderbird has left, Arindam. Then we have Aditya, Naval, Vinayak, Christopher, Ruhin, Ayush, Aman, Bindra, Amit. Aditya Shinde, Prashant, Ravi. Very nice to have all of you. Manish, Christopher. So, guys, any queries, anything else? And as I've already said, if you are in your throes of preparation, you can talk to our expert on that link. You can book a call on Calendly and talk to our experts. You're welcome, Aman. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Christopher, Rajrita. All of you, thank you very much for being such an interactive audience, guys. And if you don't have any more questions, I'm going to sign off. Have a lovely day if your day has just started, and a very good night for those of you for whom it's a night. And happy learning, guys. I hope after today's session, you will see reading and comprehension in a very different light, in a different manner, totally. Okay, guys? Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Hope to see you again.